Have you ever wondered why your cat chooses to sleep exactly in the place where you pray? It is no accident. It is not because of the heat of the ground or the comfort of your carpet. Your cat has recognized something that perhaps you had not completely noticed. That place has been marked by the sky. When a chosen deus prays with constant sincerity in a specific space, something extraordinary happens in the spiritual kingdom that even animals can detect. The Bible teaches us in Psalm 16:11 that, "In your presence there is fullness of joy," and your cat is responding to that divine presence that remains where a sincere heart has demonstrated Jesus Christ. This is not superstition or imagination. It is a spiritual reality that has deep biblical foundations and repeated testimonies worldwide. Today you will discover why your pet has chosen that sacred place, what it means spiritually when a cat sleeps where you pray, and how this behavior confirms that you are a deus chosen one. Prepare to understand a dimension of the prayer that few know, but that can completely transform your devotional life. If you have a cat and you have noticed this behavior, leave in the comments where exactly your pet sleeps and how long you have been praying in that place. We are going to build together a community of testimonies that confirm this spiritual reality. And if this content touches your heart, do not forget to subscribe to the channel and share this video, because what you are going to learn today can change forever the way you see your place of prayer. Have you ever noticed how your cat seems to have an inexplicable preference for that specific corner of your home? It is no accident that chooses precisely the place where you bend your knees in prayer, where you spill sincere tears before God, or where you whisper your deepest pleas to heaven. Felines have a spiritual sensitivity that goes far beyond what conventional science can explain. When we observe this repetitive behavior, we are witnessing something that transcends the physical, the recognition of a space that has been touched by the divine. The Bible teaches us in Psalm 16:11 that in your presence there is fullness of joy, and cats, with their natural intuition, detect that residual presence that remains where a sincere heart has cried Deus. It is as if these animals were small spiritual detectors, capable of perceiving the invisible traces that the fervent prayer leaves. They do not simply seek physical comfort. They look for something much deeper, the peace that emanates from a place where heaven and earth have been found. When your cat chooses that specific place to rest, it is responding to a spiritual frequency that you yourself have created through your faith and devotion. It is a silent but powerful confirmation that your prayers have not gone unnoticed, even for the creation that surrounds you. This phenomenon is not new in the history of mankind. Throughout the scriptures, we see how certain places became sacred after divine encounters. When Jacob woke up from his dream in Bethel, he exclaimed, "Certainly Jehovah is in this place and I didn't know." Genesis 28:16. That place was marked forever by the divine presence, and in a similar way, your prayer corner becomes a little Bethel in your home. Cats, with their natural sensitivity, perceive this sanctification of space. It is not that they look for the heat of the ground or the softness of a carpet. They are being attracted to something much more sublime, the atmosphere of reverence that you have created with your constant communication with Jesus Christ. Every time you kneel in that place, every tear that spills, every word of gratitude or supplication that you pronounce is impregnating that space with a unique spiritual energy. Your cat, without theologically understanding what happens, instinctively responds to that presence. It is as if Deus had endowed these animals with a special ability to recognize the places where their children seek their face with sincerity. When you observe your cat sleeping peacefully in your place of prayer, remember that you are seeing a living confirmation that your faith is being honored even by creation. The choice of cat is not random or motivated by purely physical factors, as many might think. These cats have the ability to perceive energy fields and vibrations that escape our limited senses. When you pray with sincerity, when you open your heart to Deus, you generate a particular spiritual frequency that remains in that space even after you get up. The Bible tells us in Matthew 6:6, "But you, when you pray, enter your room and close the door. Pray to your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you in public." That room not only refers to a physical place, but to a spiritual state that manifests itself in the space where you practice your devotion. Your cat detects that divine reward, that is already present in the form of peace, blessing, and angelic presence. It is fascinating to observe how creation responds to spiritual authenticity. It doesn't matter if you pray in a luxurious room or in a humble corner of your home. What matters is the sincerity of your heart and the constancy of your search for Deus. Your cat does not distinguish between wealth and poverty, but it does distinguish between a common place and a place where heaven has descended through fervent prayer. What makes this phenomenon even more extraordinary is the consistency with which it occurs. Not that your cat occasionally chooses that place, is that he does it repetitively, almost ritual. This persistence reveals something deep about the nature of prayer and its impact on the spiritual world. When Daniel prayed 3 times a day looking towards Jerusalem, Daniel 6:10, he was not only fulfilling a personal discipline, I was creating a spiritual pattern that had repercussions on the invisible kingdom. In the same way, your record in prayer is establishing a pattern that transcends the visible. Your cat, with its routine to rest in that specific place, is reflecting the record of your prayer life. It is as if it were a living reminder of the importance of maintaining that spiritual discipline. The faith is not something that is practiced from time to time. It is a lifestyle that permeates every aspect of our existence, including the physical spaces where we live. When your cat consistently chooses your place of prayer, it is demonstrating that the presence of Deus is not something temporary that comes and leaves, but something permanent that you have cultivated through your constant devotion. The message that your cat is sending you through your choice is deeply encouraging for any believer who seeks a confirmation that his spiritual life is on the right path. In a world where we often doubt the effectiveness of our prayers, where we ask ourselves if Deus really listens to us, this little act of your pet becomes a silent but eloquent response. The Bible assures us in 1 John 5:14 that this is the trust we have in him, that if we ask for anything according to his will, he hears us. Your cat, without knowing it, is being an instrument to strengthen that trust. He is demonstrating that when you pray with sincerity, when you are looking for the face of Jesus Christ with a pure heart, something real and tangible occurs in the spiritual kingdom. That something is so real that even an animal can perceive it and respond to it. Do not underestimate the power of this silent testimony. Every time you see your cat resting in your place of prayer, allow this image to strengthen your faith and encourage you to continue with your devotional life. When a Deus chosen is prostrated in prayer, something extraordinary happens in the surrounding environment. It is not simply a routine religious activity, it is a spiritual event that transforms the very atmosphere of the place. The Bible reveals to us in 2 Chronicles 7:1 that when Solomon finished praying, fire from heaven descended and consumed the holocaust and the victims, and the glory of Jehovah filled the house. This biblical principle is still valid today. When a sincere heart cries out to heaven, heaven responds by altering the spiritual reality of that space. Cats, with their natural sensitivity towards spiritual dimensions, act as small barometers of this transformation. They do not see with physical eyes what happens, but they feel with all their being the divine presence that manifests when a chosen intercede. It is as if they could perceive the invisible glory waves that emanate from a genuine encounter with Jesus Christ. When you observe your cat gravitating towards your place of prayer, you are seeing the physical evidence that your communication with Deus is generating a real and measurable change in the spiritual environment of your home. The transformation of the environment is not something mystical or imaginary. It is a spiritual reality with tangible manifestations that even animals can detect. When Moses descended from Mount Sinai after being in the presence of Deus, his face shone so much that the people could not look at him. Exodus 34:29-30. That glory was not just visible, impregnated his whole being and extended to the space that surrounded him. Similarly, when you pray with genuine faith, when your spirit truly connects with the Holy Spirit, you generate an atmosphere of holiness that remains in that place. Your cat, without theologically understanding what he is experiencing, responds instinctively to that transformed atmosphere. It is as if the air itself had changed their spiritual density, becoming purest, more peaceful, more loaded with the divine presence. The cats, who by nature are sensitive to energy changes, are attracted to this new quality of the environment. They don't simply seek a comfortable place to rest, They look for a place where they can experience that supernatural peace that only comes from the presence of Deus. This phenomenon of environmental transformation through prayer has deep biblical precedents that help us understand its importance. When Elijah prayed on Mount Carmel, not only fire from the sky, the entire atmosphere of the place changed dramatically. 1 Kings 18:36-39. The people who were present could physically feel the difference between the environment before and after the sentence of the prophet. Today, even if we do not see literal fire descending from the sky, the same principle operates when a chosen deus prays sincerely. The divine presence descends, the angels approach, and the atmosphere is loaded with a spiritual energy that transcends the natural. Your cat, acting as an involuntary detector of this presence, confirms with its behavior that something supernatural is happening. It is fascinating to observe how creation responds to spiritual authenticity. When Jesus Christ transfigured in the mountain, not only his appearance changed, the entire atmosphere of the place was transformed to the point that the disciples were overwhelmed by glory. Matthew 17:1-6. Your place of prayer experiences a mini transfiguration every time you are genuinely with Deus. The ability of a chosen to mark spaces through prayer reveals something deep about the nature of our relationship with Deus and our role as their representatives on earth. When Jesus taught us to pray, "Your kingdom come, your will, as in heaven, so also on earth," Matthew 6:10, it was showing us that prayer is the mechanism through which the celestial kingdom manifests itself in the earthly kingdom. Every time a chosen one prays with faith, he is literally inviting heaven to descend and establish his domain in that specific space. Your cat, without understanding the theology behind this process, experiences the effects of this heavenly invasion. Feel the peace that exceeds all understanding, the presence that brings comfort, the atmosphere of security that can only come from Deus itself. That is why he chooses that place to rest, instinctively recognizes that it is a territory that has been claimed by the kingdom of heaven. When you observe this behavior in your pet, remember that you are seeing a confirmation that your prayer is fulfilling its purpose, transforming your environment into a bit of heaven on earth. The impact of prayer on the environment is not limited to the exact moment you are praying. Create a spiritual impregnation that lasts over time. It is as if the molecules of the air had been touched by divine glory and maintained that mark for hours, days, even weeks after your encounter with Deus. The Bible tells us about places that remained saints long after Deus manifested there. Mount Horeb remained considered the Monte de Deus long after Moses had his encounter with the burning bush. 1 Kings 19:8. In the same way, your prayer corner maintains a special atmosphere that your cat can detect even when you are not present. This persistence of the divine presence is one of the most beautiful blessings of maintaining a life of constant prayer. Not only do you benefit during moments of communion with Jesus Christ, you also create a permanently transformed environment that blesses everyone who inhabit your home, including your pets. Your cat thus becomes a silent witness of the reality that Deus honors the loyalty of their chosen ones, marking the spaces where they look for their face with sincerity and constancy. It is easy to fall into simplistic explanations when we observe the behavior of our pets, but the spiritual reality behind your cat's actions is much deeper than the search for physical comfort. Many would say that your feline simply looks for the warmest place in the house, or that it is attracted to the soft texture of your prayer carpet. However, if you observe carefully, you will notice that your cat chooses that specific place, even when there are more comfortable options available in other parts of your home. It is not the body heat what it seeks. It is the spiritual warmth that emanates from a place where the heart has shed before Deus. The Bible teaches us in John 4:24 that Deus is spirit, and those who worship him, in spirit and in truth, it is necessary that they worship. When you worship in spirit and truth, you generate a spiritual presence that transcends the physical, and your cat, with its natural sensitivity, is attracted to that divine presence. It is as if he could feel the invisible footprints left by Deus's glory when a chosen looks for his face with sincerity. Do not underestimate this capacity. You are witnessing a living confirmation that your prayer life is generating a supernatural atmosphere in your home. The distinction between seeking physical heat and seeking spiritual presence becomes evident when we analyze the consistent behavior of felines in homes where fervent prayer is practiced. If it were simply a matter of temperature or comfort, your cat would change places according to the stations, looking for the sun in winter or the shadow in summer. But when a cat has identified a place of prayer, it remains faithful to that space regardless of environmental conditions. This reminds us of Deus's loyalty towards those who constantly seek him. In Jeremiah 29:13 he promises, "And you will look for me and you will find me, because you will look for all your heart." Your cat is responding to that promise fulfilled. It is detecting that in that specific place, Deus has been found in a special way. The divine presence that is manifested through your communion with Jesus Christ creates an atmosphere of peace and security that goes beyond any physical comfort. It is a feeling of being in the right place at the right time, under the protection of the Most High. Your pet, without theologically understanding what he is experiencing, responds instinctively to that sense of divine security that can only be found in places where heaven has touched the earth. The search for presence by your cat reveals something deep about the nature of creation and its relationship with the divine. From the beginning, all creation was designed to respond to the presence of its creator. In Genesis 1:31, we read that, "He saw everything he had done, and behold, he was good in great way." That original kindness included a natural tuning between creation and divine presence. Although sin distorted this relationship, animals maintain vestiges of that original sensitivity towards the sacred. When your cat seeks a presence instead of simple physical comfort, it is manifesting an echo of that primary connection with the divine. It is as if he carried in his nature an ancestral memory of what it means to be in the presence of Deus. Your place of reactive prayer, that memory, awakening in your pet an instinctive recognition that there dates something sacred. It is no coincidence that Jesus Christ has said in Matthew 18:3 that we must become children to enter the kingdom of heaven. Animals, in their simplicity, maintain that ability to recognize the sacred without complications of human reasoning. Your cat is teaching you, through its behavior, to recognize and value the divine presence with the same simplicity and constancy. Your cat's preference for the presence of physical comfort also tells us about the correct priorities in spiritual life. In a world obsessed with material comfort, your pet is giving you a deep lesson about what really matters. Do not choose the softer sofa, the warmest bed, or the most protected corner. Choose the place where Deus's presence is more tangible. This reflects Jesus' words in Matthew 6:33, "But seek the kingdom of Deus and his justice, and all these things will be added to you." Your cat, without knowing it, is practicing this biblical principle by prioritizing spiritual presence over immediate physical needs. It is a living demonstration that when we put the spiritual in the first place, everything else finds its right place. The peace that your pet experiences in that place of prayer is superior to any comfort that could be found in other places in the house. It is the peace that comes from being in the presence of the Prince of Peace, a tranquility that does not depend on external circumstances, but on the spiritual reality of the moment. When you observe your cat choosing presence on comfort, allow this image to inspire you to make the same choices in your own spiritual life. This behavior of seeking divine presence above physical comforts makes your cat an involuntary teacher of genuine worship. The true worshipers, according to Jesus, in John 4:23, are those who worship the Father in spirit and in truth. Your pet, without understanding theological concepts, is demonstrating practically what it means to be attracted to the spiritual rather than material. You do not need to understand complicated doctrines. It simply responds to the reality of the divine presence with an honesty that humans often lose in our mental complications. Every time you see your cat resting in your place of prayer, remember that you are seeing an example of pure worship, the search for Deus above all other considerations. It is a reminder that the true faith is not based on what we can see, touch, or feel physically, but on the invisible but tangible reality of the presence of Jesus Christ in our lives. Your cat is teaching you that the divine presence is more satisfactory than any earthly comfort, more comforting than any material luxury, and safer than any physical refuge. Throughout the history of Christianity, fascinating testimonies of believers have emerged who have observed this same phenomenon in their homes. Cats that, inexplicably, began to sleep exclusively in the places where their owners maintained a life of constant prayer. Maria, an old woman from 78 years of Guadalajara, tells how her gata Esperanza had never shown interest in the small altar she had built in her room until she began to pray the rosary daily there. "At first I thought it was a coincidence," says Maria. "But after 3 months watching how Esperanza arrived exactly at 6 in the afternoon and snuggled in front of the image of Jesus Christ, I knew that Deus was sending me a sign." This type of testimonies is repeated again and again in communities of faith around the world, confirming that it is not isolated coincidences, but of a recognizable spiritual pattern. The Bible teaches us in Psalm 50:10 that mine is all beast of the forest and thousands of animals in the hills, reminding us that all creation belongs to Deus and can be used by him to communicate with his children. These testimonies show us that domestic animals can become silent messengers of divine confirmation, validating the authenticity of our spiritual practices. Carlos's testimony, a shepherd of a church in Monterrey, adds another dimension to this phenomenon. His cat Simon had been an independent animal for 5 years, sleeping in different places in the house according to his craving. However, when Carlos established a fixed morning prayer schedule in his study, Simon began to appear promptly every morning, positioning exactly in the place where Carlos knelt to pray. "The most impressive," says Carlos, "is that Simon came, even before me. It was as if I had an internal clock synchronized with my prayer time." This testimony illustrates something deep about the nature of constant prayer and its impact on the spiritual environment. When we establish communion routines with Deus, we not only discipline our spirit, we also create spiritual patterns that creation can detect and to which it responds. Genuine faith generates such a real spiritual frequency that even animals can tune into it. Simon's behavior confirms the words of Jesus in Matthew 6:6 about the importance of having a secret place of prayer, a space that becomes sacred through constant use and the sincerity of the heart. Ana Sofia, a young mother of Puebla, shared a testimony that demonstrates how this phenomenon can manifest even in difficult circumstances. During a period of marriage crisis, he established a corner of prayer in his room where he cried Deus for the restoration of his home. His angel, Cat, who previously slept in bed with his children, began to spend full nights in that corner of prayer. "There were nights when I cried until dawn asking Jesus Christ to save my marriage," recalls Ana Sofia. "And Angel remained there with me, as if I were my vigil partner." 6 months later, her husband returned home and her marriage was restored. "Now I understand that Angel not only accompanied me, I was confirming that my prayers were being heard in heaven." This testimony reveals how cats can become silent partners during our most difficult moments, offering not only physical company, but spiritual confirmation that our pleas are reaching the throne of grace. The constant presence of the animal in the place of prayer becomes a source of breath, reminding us that we are not alone in our spiritual struggles. Don Roberto's testimony, a 65-year-old retiree from Oaxaca, adds a unique perspective on how this phenomenon can gradually develop. "My faithful cat had never been religious," jokes Don Roberto, "but when I started reading the Bible aloud every afternoon on my terrace, he started approaching. Initially, Faithful sat at a certain distance, but with the passing of the weeks, he approached more until he finally began to sleep directly on the Bible when Don Roberto ended his reading. One day I realized that I had developed the habit of reaching the terrace even before me, waiting for biblical reading." This testimony illustrates how constant exposure to Deus's word can create a spiritual atmosphere so powerful that even animals are attracted to it. The Bible tells us in Isaiah 55:11 that Deus's word will not return to me empty, but will do what I want and will be prospered in that to send it. Thiel's behavior confirms that the word has power even on creation, generating a presence that transcends the barriers between species. These repeated testimonies teach us something fundamental about the nature of authentic prayer and its impact on the world around us. They are not isolated stories of imaginative people. They are consistent confirmations of a spiritual reality that operates independently of our complete understanding of it. Dr. Patricia Hernandez, a Christian veterinarian in Mexico City, has documented more than 50 similar cases in her professional practice. At first I thought it was coincidence, explains Dr. Hernandez. But the pattern's consistency made me understand that I was watching something deeper. Cats seem to have a natural capacity to detect spaces where sincere prayer is practiced. Their professional observations confirm that this phenomenon transcends cultural, socio-economic, or denominational differences. What matters is not the specific style of prayer or the particular religious tradition. What matters is the sincerity of the heart and the constancy in looking for Deus's face. When Jesus Christ promised in Matthew 18:20 that, "Where 2 or 3 gathered in my name are, there I am in their midst," he did not specify that they had to be only human. These testimonies suggest that creation can also participate in some way in that promise, recognizing and responding to the divine presence that manifests when their children gather with him in sincere prayer. The sanctification of spaces through prayer is not a new concept in the Christian experience. It has deep roots in the scriptures and extends from biblical times to the present day. When we examined the Bible, we found multiple examples of places that became sacred precisely because their elected Deus cried with sincerity and received a divine response. Mount Horeb became the Monte de Deus after Moses had his encounter with the burning bush, Exodus 3:1-6. Bethel received his name, which means house of Deus, after Jacob had his vision of the celestial stairs, Genesis 28:10-19. The Jordan River became a miracles place after Elias and Elisha crossed it. Dry 2 Kings 2:8-14. These were not special places because of their geographical location or their physical characteristics. They became sacred because there the sky touched the earth through the prayer and the faith of Deus's chosen ones. Your prayer corner operates under the same biblical principle. When a sincere heart seeks the face of Jesus Christ constantly in a specific place, that space is permeated from a divine presence that even animals can detect. Your cat is responding to the same spiritual reality that made these biblical places recognized as santos. Gethsemane represents perhaps the most powerful example of how intense prayer can sanctify a space. It was there that Jesus Christ shed his soul before the Father, where his sweat was made like great drops of blood that fell to earth, Luke 22:44. That garden became a sacred place not because of its natural beauty, but for the intensity of the communion that was established there between heaven and earth. Centuries later, Christians continue to visit that place because they recognize that something eternal happened there. Similarly, when you pray with the same intensity and sincerity in your home, when you spill your heart against Deus as Jesus did in Gethsemane, you are creating your own sacred place. Your cat, with its natural sensitivity towards the spiritual, detects that residual holiness that remains after your encounters with the divine. It is as if he could perceive the invisible footprints left by Deus when a chosen cries with all his heart. The Bible teaches us in Psalm 34:18 that close to those broken from the heart and saves the contrite of spirit. When your heart breaks, in sincere prayer, Deus is on a special way, and that divine closeness permeates the physical space where the encounter occurs. The tabernacle of Moses provides us with another fundamental biblical model to understand how spaces are sanctified through divine presence. Exodus 40:34-35 tells us that, "Then a cloud covered the meeting tabernacle, and the glory of Jehovah filled the tabernacle. And Moses could not enter the tabernacle of the meeting because the cloud was on him, and the glory of Jehovah filled him." That tabernacle was simply a structure of fabrics and woods, until Deus's presence filled it and transformed it into the most sacred place on earth. Your place of prayer experiences a similar transformation every time Deus's glory descends in response to your sincere cry. Although you do not see a visible cloud or literal fire, the same divine presence that filled the tabernacle can fill your corner of prayer when you are looking for Jesus Christ with all your heart. Your cat acts as a living indicator of this presence, confirming with its behavior that something supernatural is happening in that space. It is fascinating to observe how creation responds to the divine presence with the same reverence that the Israelites showed before the tabernacle. Your pet, without theologically understanding what you are experiencing, manifests that same instinctive reverence when choosing that place for your rest. The altar that Abraham built in Moriah became a sacred place because there demonstrated his absolute faith by being willing to sacrifice Isaac, Genesis 22:1-14. Deus recognized the holiness of that place, providing the ram for sacrifice and establishing there a revelation of his character as Jehovah Jireh. The Lord will provide. Centuries later, Solomon would build the temple on that same mountain, recognizing that it was a place where the sky had touched the earth in a special way. Your place of prayer can become your own Mount Moriah when you are willing to sacrifice your own wishes and submit your will completely to Deus. Every time you choose to pray instead of doing your will, every time you sacrifice your time and comfort to seek the face of Jesus Christ, you are sanctifying that space through your obedience and faith. Your cat recognizes that holiness because animals have a natural ability to detect places where genuine spiritual sacrifices have been made. He does not need to understand the theological concept of sacrifice. It simply responds to the atmosphere of delivery and consecration that you have created through your constant prayer life. Elijah's experience on Mount Carmelo teaches us how a single act of fervent prayer can completely transform the spiritual atmosphere of a place. When the prophet cried out Deus before Baal's prophets, then Jehovah's fire fell and consumed the holocaust, firewood, stones, and dust, and still licked the water that was in the ditch. 1 Kings 18:38. That mountain instantly became a living testimony of Deus's power, a place where the impossible was made possible through the prayer of a chosen one. Your place of prayer has the potential to become your own Mount Carmelo every time clamas a Deus, with the same faith and determination that Elijah showed. Although you do not see literal fire descending from the sky, the same divine presence that responded to Elijah can manifest in your life when you pray with absolute sincerity. Your cat is detecting that divine manifestation, confirming with its constant presence that your place of prayer has become a space where the sky responds to the earth. Every time you observe your pet resting in that sacred place, remember that you are seeing a modern confirmation of the same spiritual reality that operated in the biblical times. Deus continues to sanctify spaces where his chosen cry out to him with sincere hearts and unwavering. Your cat's ability to recognize your chosen condition is not based on your external appearance, your social status, or your human achievements. It is based on something much deeper and more spiritual, the invisible brand you leave in each place where you step on genuine faith. The Bible teaches us in Deuteronomy 11:24 that every place that will step on the plant of your foot will be yours, and this promise has spiritual implications that go beyond territorial possession. When a Deus chosen walks in faith, every step he takes is impregnated with the divine presence that lives in him. Your cat, with its natural sensitivity towards spiritual dimensions, can detect that supernatural impregnation that you leave in your path. It is as if you could see the invisible traces of Deus's glory that adhere to the ground where a chosen one has walked in communion with Jesus Christ. It is no coincidence that your pet specifically chooses the place where you kneel to pray. It is responding to the spiritual brand that you have left there, through your physical contact combined with your spiritual delivery. Every time you bend the knees in that place, you are not only touching the ground with your body, you are impregnating that space with the spiritual essence of your relationship with Deus. This spiritual recognition capacity by animals has fascinating biblical precedents that help us understand the depth of this phenomenon. When Balaam tried to curse the people of Israel, his ass could see the angel of the Lord who interposed on the road, while the prophet remained blind to spiritual reality. Numbers 22:21-34. The animal recognized the divine presence before the human, demonstrating that creation often has a more acute spiritual perception than us. Similarly, your cat can be detecting the angelic presence that accompanies you as chosen from Deus, or the spiritual brand you leave when you walk in obedience to your will. The Bible promises us in Psalm 91:11 that because its angels will send about you to keep you in all your paths. It is possible that your pet is responding not only to your presence, but to the angelic presence that surrounds you as Deus's son. Every step you take in faith is accompanied by heavenly beings, and your cat, with its natural sensitivity, can perceive that supernatural company that marks your path. The recognition your cat makes of your chosen condition is also manifested in its response to the spiritual territory that you establish through your prayer life. When Jesus said in Luke 10:19, "Behold, I give you the power to threaten snakes and scorpions, and about all strength of the enemy, and nothing will harm you. I was talking about a spiritual authority that manifests itself even in the physical level. As chosen from Deus, you have the authority to establish peace territories, places where the divine presence governs over the forces of darkness. Your cat instinctively recognizes these sanctified territories and is attracted to them because they represent areas of absolute spiritual security. It is not simply to seek physical comfort. He is looking for supernatural protection that emanates from a place where a chosen one has established the domain of the kingdom of heaven. Every time you pray in that place, you are renewing and strengthening that spiritual authority, creating an atmosphere where the forces of evil cannot operate freely. Your pet detects that atmosphere of divine protection and responds by positioning within that perimeter of spiritual security. The brand you leave on the ground as chosen is also related to the anointing you carry as Deus's son. In 1 John 2:20, the Bible tells us that you have the anointing of the saint and know all things. This anointing is not just an abstract spiritual reality. It has tangible manifestations that can be perceived by those who have sensitivity towards the supernatural. Your cat can be detecting that divine anointing that is transferred to the environment through your constant presence in prayer. It is as if the holy oil of the Holy Spirit that lives in you spill on the place where you practice your devotion, creating an atmosphere impregnated with the divine presence. This anointing not only marks you as chosen, it also marks the places where you spend time in communion with Jesus Christ. Your pet, without theologically understanding what you are experiencing, responds instinctively to that residual anointing that remains in your place of prayer. It is a living confirmation that Deus's presence in your life is not just an internal experience. It has external effects that can be detected even by the creation that surrounds you. Your cat's behavior also reflects the biblical principle that creation recognizes and responds to genuine spiritual authority. When Jesus walked on the waters, he not only demonstrated his power over physical laws, he also showed how creation responds to divine authority. Matthew 14:25-26. As chosen from Deus, you participate in that same authority to a lesser extent, and your cat is responding to that spiritual reality. You do not need to understand complex theological concepts. He simply recognizes that in you an authority inhabits the natural. Every time you see your pet by choosing the place where you pray, remember that you are seeing a confirmation of your identity as Deus chosen. Your cat is teaching you something deep about your own spiritual nature, that you have the divine presence wherever you go, and that this presence is so real that even animals can detect it and respond to it. It is a beautiful reminder that your relationship with Jesus Christ is not just a private personal experience. It is a reality that transforms your whole environment, including the way creation responds to your presence as the Son of the Most High. Your cat's deep and peaceful rest in your prayer is not simply an act of physical comfort. It is a visible manifestation that this space has been visited by the heavenly presence. When you watch your pet sleeping placidly in the exact place where you claims a Deus, you are seeing a tangible confirmation that your prayers have opened a portal between heaven and earth. The Bible teaches us in Genesis 28:17 that Jacob, after his divine encounter, exclaimed, "How terrible is this place! It is nothing other than Deus's house and Puerta del Cielo." Your place of prayer has become your own Puerta del Cielo, an access point where the celestial dimension intersects with earthly reality. Your cat, with its natural sensitivity towards spiritual realities, detects that divine intersection and responds with the deepest rest it can experience. It is no coincidence to choose that specific place for its moments of greater vulnerability and relaxation. Instinctively acknowledges that there lives a security that transcends any physical protection. He is resting under the shadow of the omnipotent, experiencing the peace that can only come from the direct presence of Jesus Christ. The absolute tranquility that your cat manifests in your place of prayer reflects the same peace that the disciples experienced when Jesus calmed the storm with his words, Mark 4:39. That supernatural peace that transcends human understanding becomes tangible in spaces where heaven has descended through fervent prayer. Your pet is experiencing what the psalmist describes in Psalm 23:2. "In places of delicate pastures it will make me rest. Next to rest waters it will shepherd me." Although your cat does not theologically understand what it is experiencing, its animal spirit responds to the reality that this place has become a place of delicate pastures, spiritual, where the presence of Good Shepherd provides perfect break. Every time you pray with sincerity in that space, you are inviting the Prince of Peace to establish their domain there, creating an atmosphere where even animals can experience divine tranquility. It is a practical demonstration of how genuine prayer not only transforms to the one who prays, but also transforms the surrounding environment, creating areas of heavenly peace in the midst of a turbulent world. Your cat's deep sleep in your prayer also indicates that special angelic protection has been established there. The Bible promises us in Psalm 34:7 that the angel of Jehovah encamps around those who fear him and defends them. When a elected Deus prays constantly in a specific place, that space becomes an angelic camp, a territory where heavenly hosts assemble guard. Your cat, with its natural ability to perceive spiritual presences, detects that angelic protection and responds, with the absolute confidence that can only be experienced under divine care. There is no fear in your rest because you instinctively know that it is under the protection of heavenly beings. It is as if it could perceive the invisible wings that cover that place, providing security that goes beyond any earthly protection. When Jesus promised in Matthew 18:10 that the angels of the little ones always see my Father's face in the heavens, he was revealing a reality that extends to all those who sincerely seek Deus's face. Your place of prayer has become a point where those angels congregate, and your cat is experiencing the peace that comes from being in the presence of the heavenly guardians. The choice of your sleep cat in your prayer also indicates that there has been a frequency of worship that resonates with heavenly worship. Apocalypse 4:8 describes how living beings around Deus's throne did not stop day and night to say, "Holy, holy is the Lord Deus Almighty, who was, who is, and who is to come." When you sincerely worship in your place of prayer, you join that eternal worship that never ceases in heaven. Your cat is responding to that frequency of worship that you have established, finding in it a harmony that produces perfect rest. It is as if his animal spirit was tuned with heavenly music that emanates from a place where genuine adoration has become a constant practice. You do not need to understand the words of your prayers or the concepts of your worship. It simply responds to the atmosphere of reverence and glory that you have created through your constant communion with Jesus Christ. His peaceful rest is a confirmation that your worship is being received in heaven and is transforming the spiritual reality of your environment. The phenomenon of your cat sleeping in your place of prayer also tells us about the restoration of the original divine order that Deus established in creation. In Eden, before the fall, there was a perfect harmony between humanity, animals, and divine presence. Genesis 2:19 tells us that Adam gave names to all animals, indicating a relationship of harmony and communication that was lost with sin. When your cat chooses your place of prayer for your rest, you are experiencing an echo of that original harmony, a temporary return to the state where creation lived in perfect peace under the direct presence of its creator. Your prayer life is recreating on a small scale the conditions of Eden where the presence of Deus was tangible and all creation rested in perfect security. It is an anticipation of the final restoration that Jesus Christ will bring, when the wolf and the lamb will be a pack together. Isaiah 65:25. Every time you see your cat resting peacefully in your place of prayer, remember that you are seeing a small sample of the coming kingdom, where the presence of Deus will restore perfect harmony among all its creation. One of the deepest revelations about the power of sincere prayer is that its effects transcend the specific moment in which you practice it, creating a spiritual impregnation that remains active long after you have finished your communion time with Deus. Your cat, when choosing your place of prayer for your rest even when you are not present, is demonstrating a fundamental spiritual truth. Genuine prayer leaves eternal traces in the surrounding environment. The Bible teaches us in Isaiah 55:11 that Deus's word will not return to me empty, but will do what I want and will be prospered in that to send it. Similarly, your sincere prayers do not fade in the air once pronounced. They become an active, spiritual presence that continues to operate in the place where they were high. Your pet is responding to that residual presence, confirming that communication with Jesus Christ generates a supernatural atmosphere that persists over time. It is as if each prayer were a spiritual seed planted in that space, germinating and growing to create an invisible garden of divine presence that even animals can perceive and enjoy. The persistence of the divine presence in your place of prayer reflects the biblical principle that Deus lives in the praises of his people, Psalm 22:3. When you praise and pray constantly in a specific place, you are building a spiritual tabernacle where the presence of Deus can dwell permanently. Your cat is experiencing the benefits of that divine room, finding in your place of prayer a peace and security that cannot find any other place in your home. It is fascinating to observe how creation responds to Deus's loyalty towards those who sincerely seek him. Even when you are not physically present, the promise of Jesus in Matthew 28:20 that "Here I am with you every day until the end of the world" manifests itself tangible in that sanctified space. Your pet is experiencing that continuous presence of Christ, confirming that genuine prayer establishes a permanent connection between heaven and earth. It is not that Deus comes and leaves according to your physical presence. His presence is stable in places where his children are looking for sincere and constant hearts. Your cat's behavior also illustrates how creation participates in the blessings that result from a life of faithful prayer. Romans 8:19 tells us that the burning, yearning of creation is to await the manifestation of Deus's children. When you manifest your identity as Deus's son through constant prayer, all the creation that surrounds you benefits from that manifestation. Your pet is experiencing a release of corruption that affects all fallen creation, finding in your place of prayer an advance of glorious freedom that will come when Jesus Christ restores all things. It is as if your prayer life created a restoration bubble, where even animals can experience something of the original shalom that Deus designed for its creation. Every time you see your cat resting in your place of prayer, remember that you are seeing a confirmation that your fidelity in prayer not only benefits you, but also blesses all the creation that surrounds you. Your devotional life becomes a source of blessing that extends beyond your personal experience, even touching beings who cannot verbally express their gratitude. The honor that creation shows towards your prayer life also teaches us about the importance of constancy in our spiritual disciplines. Your cat does not respond to occasional or sporadic sentences. It responds to an established, sincere search pattern of Deus. This reflects Jesus' words in Luke 18:1 about the need to always pray and not pass out. Constant prayer not only strengthens your personal relationship with Deus, it also establishes a stable divine presence that benefits your whole environment. It is like building a brick spiritual house by brick, prayer, to create a solid structure where the presence of Deus can permanently inhabit. Your pet is enjoying the stability of that spiritual house, finding in it a shelter that does not depend on external circumstances, but on the faithfulness of your relationship with Jesus Christ. Every day you keep your discipline of prayer, you are adding another brick to that spiritual construction, strengthening the atmosphere of peace and divine presence that your cat has learned to value and search. The recognition made by the creation of your prayer life also tells us about the cosmic impact that sincere intercession has. When Daniel prayed for his people during the Babylonian captivity, his prayers not only affected his personal situation, they moved Deus's heart to restore an entire nation, Daniel 9:20-27. Similarly, your prayers in that specific corner of your home are generating spiritual waves that extend far beyond what you can see or imagine. Your cat is experiencing the local effects of these spiritual waves, but the real impact of your prayer life extends to dimensions that only eternity will completely reveal. The Bible promises us in Santiago 5:16 that the effective prayer of the righteous can a lot. Your pet is confirming the effectiveness of your prayers by demonstrating that even non-rational creation can perceive and respond to the power that is released when a fair clarifies Deus with sincerity. Every time you observe your cat honoring your place of prayer with its presence, it allows that image to inspire you to continue with your devotional life, knowing that your prayers are generating an impact that transcends your current understanding and extends until it even touching the smallest creatures of the creation of Deus. When you discover that your cat has chosen your place of prayer as its favorite refuge, you should not see it as a simple coincidence or an unimportant curiosity. You must recognize it as a divine confirmation that this space has been spiritually activated and requires your attention and intensified dedication. The Bible teaches us in 1 Kings 8:29 that Dios promises that his eyes will be open towards this house at night and day, to this place from which you have said, my name will be there, and you will hear the prayer that your servant does in this place. Your place of prayer has become that house where the name of Deus lives in a special way, and your cat is confirming that spiritual reality with its constant presence. It is time to intensify your devotional life in that specific place, knowing that you have privileged access to the throne of grace. Do not waste this divine opportunity. When the sky marks a place as special, it is because Deus wants to find yourself with you there in a deeper and more intimate way. Your pet is pointing to you a spiritual portal that has been specifically opened for you, and your answer must be of greater consecration and search for Jesus Christ in that sanctified space. The spiritual activation of your place of prayer means that optimal conditions have been established for effective communication with Deus, and you must take advantage of that spiritual advantage, praying with greater intensity and expectation. When Elijah went up to Mount Carmelo to pray for rain, he did not settle for a superficial prayer. He prayed with such intensity that he sent his servant 7 times to look towards the sea, until he saw the little cloud that announced the answer. 1 Kings 18:41-44. Similarly, your place of activated prayer requires that same intensity and persistence. Your cat is confirming that spiritual conditions are favorable for miracles, for powerful responses, for transforming encounters with the divine presence. It is as if he were telling you, this place is loaded with heavenly power. Do not pray here routinely. Pray with the expectation that great things will happen. The constant presence of your pet in that place must inspire you to raise the level of your prayer life, to cry with greater faith, to worship with greater passion, to intercede with greater authority. When the sky activates a place, it is because it is preparing something extraordinary to manifest there. The fact that your place of prayer is also activated means that you must establish more regular and disciplined schedules for your communion, time with Deus in that specific space. The Bible shows us that Daniel had the habit of praying 3 times a day in his high room, looking towards Jerusalem, Daniel 6:10, and this constant discipline was what kept his connection with the sky. Even in foreign land, your cat is responding to the regularity of your presence in prayer, confirming that constancy creates a stable and powerful spiritual atmosphere. It is time to establish sacred quotes with Deus in that place, specific schedules where he knows that he can find you looking for his face with sincerity. Do not allow daily occupations to move away from that place that has been marked by heaven. Prioritize your time there as you would with the most important appointment of your life. Your pet is teaching you about the importance of fidelity in prayer. Just as she constantly returns to that place, you must also return more frequently, and determination. Spiritual activation requires maintenance through the constant presence and sincere search for Jesus Christ. The intensification of your prayer life in that activated place must also include different types of prayer: worship, intercession, request, thanksgiving, and spiritual war. When Nehemiah prayed by the restoration of Jerusalem, it was not limited to a single type of prayer. He combined confession, plea, worship, and declaration of Deus's promises. Nehemiah 1:4-11. Your place of activated prayer can handle this diversity of spiritual communication, becoming a center of heavenly operations where you can exercise different aspects of your relationship with Deus. Your cat is confirming that this space has the spiritual capacity to house deep and varied encounters with the divine. It is time to expand your prayer repertoire in that place, exploring new dimensions of communion with Jesus Christ. You can worship there with greater freedom, intercede with greater authority, cry out for miracles with greater expectation, warm spiritually with greater power. The presence of your pet is a confirmation that this place can sustain any type of spiritual activity that you want to develop there. Finally, when you pray stronger in that activated place, you must do it with the confidence that you are operating from a position of spiritual advantage, from a place that has already been prepared by the sky for powerful manifestations. The Bible promises us in Jeremiah 33:3, "Crows me, and I will answer you, and I will teach you great and hidden things that you do not know." Your place of activated prayer is the perfect place to cry with that promise, knowing that Deus is especially willing to reveal great and hidden things. Your cat is resting on those revelations that are waiting to be released through your intensified prayer. Do not pray there as if it were a common place. Pray as if it were the most powerful place on earth for your spiritual life, because that is exactly what has become. Every time you see your pet in that place, remember that you are seeing a confirmation that you have access to supernatural power that can transform any situation into your life. It is time to pray stronger, with greater faith, with greater expectation, knowing that this place is already activated and ready to express the miracles that Jesus Christ wants to do in your life. Now that you know the spiritual truth behind your cat's behavior, you cannot see your choice as a simple coincidence. Every time you see him resting in your place of prayer, remember that you are seeing a living confirmation that you are a Deus chosen one and that your prayers are being honored even by creation. I want you to tell me in the comments, do your cat also choose your place of prayer to rest? How long have you been praying in that same place? Your testimony can confirm this spiritual reality for other brothers in the faith. If this video has impacted you and you want to continue discovering deep spiritual truths like this, subscribe to the channel right now and activate notifications. You cannot miss the next contents that will revolutionize your prayer life. And look, the next recommended video is already appearing on the screen that will take you even deeper in the mysteries of spiritual life. Don't go without seeing it. That Deus bless you abundantly. And remember, if your cat sleeps where you pray, it is because the sky already recognized the chosen one. Until next, I'm Jose.